Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. Look, y'all, I'm fired up. This is oftentimes my favorite day of the year because LSU and Alabama is a big freaking deal. There's a reason why yesterday when I was bringing my kid home, there were RVs lined up in the levee lot. There's a reason why I just left a luncheon where everyone was in purple and gold and we were interviewing former Tigers and nobody was working because it's an awesome weekend on this campus when LSU and Alabama get together. Oftentimes, Friday, a lot more enjoyable than Saturday. Saturday, quite frankly, there's a lot of anxiety, and over the years, there's been a lot of heartbreak on Saturdays with LSU and Alabama. Friday, no heartbreak. Not that much anxiety, just a lot of anticipation and a lot of fun, and that's the way that I'm feeling right now about this game between LSU and Alabama. I wrote a piece earlier this week for LouisianaSports.net where I kind of outlined this recent rivalry. I didn't go back to the 70s with the Bear. I didn't go back to the early 2000s when LSU snapped a bajillion game-long home losing streak to Alabama. I didn't even go, honestly, back to last year that much with Jaden Daniels, or 2 years ago with Jaden Daniels and Mason Taylor in the win in overtime. I went back to the two games that LSU fans remember the most fondly in recent memory. And that's, of course, 2011, the game of the century, and 2019, which matched up to phenomenal football teams, the eventual national champions that many call the greatest team in the history of college football, and the team that would win the national championship the next year. The numbers in terms of NFL draft picks from those two games are truly astounding. In 2011, there were 45 NFL draft picks on those rosters. 45. 13 players from the 2011 LSU-Bama games went in the first round of the NFL draft. 13. Then you fast forward to 2019, they had more first-rounders eventually. 19 first-round picks were on the field between LSU and Alabama. There were 11 Crimson Tide players on that 2019 team that would go on to play in the first round. That's a big deal when you start talking about how good that LSU team was. They went to Tuscaloosa and absolutely, totally, and completely, I don't even want to hear from any Alabama fans with any dissenting opinions whatsoever. LSU, start to finish, owned that game. Alabama ran a punt back. Derek Stingley was looking at the sideline for a long Devontae Smith touchdown. Like, those count, and I'm not going to take them off the scoreboard. But if you look for man-on-man, line of scrimmage on line of scrimmage, quarterback on quarterback, LSU beat the absolute brakes off of Alabama that day, and that Alabama team ended up putting 11 players in the first round of the NFL draft. And they won the national championship the next year. And oh, by the way, Joe Burrow won the Heisman that year, and Devontae Smith won the Heisman next year. There were two Heisman Trophy winners on the field that day, and they didn't have a shabby day. 5 touchdowns and 670 yards, those two combined for. And you watch this game year after year after year with NFL players littered all over the field, national championship implications in the air, two of the most iconic brands and uniforms and stadiums in the sport. It was an epic decade and a half. Now, it was one-sided, and I'm pointing out the two wins. There was a lot more heartbreak. We can talk about 2012. We can talk about that matchup when Leonard Fournette went in there riding high in 2015 and got shut down, and Derrick Henry stole the Heisman from him. You can talk about basically almost a decade from the 2012 January game through 2018 where LSU didn't win a game. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't one of the spectacles of the sport. How often does game day show up here? A lot. Where do these two teams always put their bye weeks? Right in front of it. CBS was flexing one game a year into prime time. This one, almost every year. And while you would still look at an Alabama fan and say, who's your most hated rival? And probably 7 of them would say Auburn and 3 would say Tennessee. And I don't think any of them would say LSU. But that doesn't take away from how great this rivalry has been in the landscape of college football, really since 2007. And tomorrow we'll go inside Tiger Stadium and Nick Saban's not going to be there. And those first-round draft picks that I rattled off are not going to be matched. And quite honestly, I don't think either one of these teams is winning the national championship. I do think one of these teams is going to have a chance to play for it. And that is a big freaking deal. This is a big game for both of these teams. Kalen DeBoer losing 3 games on November the 9th in Tuscaloosa is a disaster. Brian Kelly falling for the 3rd time this year in year 3 is short of where many people thought this program would be when he took over, even in the disrepair the program was in. Somebody is walking out of that stadium feeling like, we got a chance. We're in this thing. We're playing better. Somebody's walking out going, this is not going to be a fun last month. Our goals are out the window. My fan base is not going to be very happy about that. Like, those stakes are huge. And I gave a similar conversation entering the USC game. I gave a similar conversation entering the Ole Miss game. And I gave a similar conversation entering Texas A&M. But you realize that now with those games in the rearview mirror and with those understanding what those results actually meant, tomorrow is bigger than those games because of how those games went. Yeah, if LSU takes care of their business against USC and takes care of their business against A&M, this game's still massive, but it's not as big because you have wiggle room. You don't. Yeah, you did. You did great against Ole Miss. That was a huge game, incredible environment, but it just meant you were still set up with a little wiggle room, and then you used all of it in College Station. This game is a big, big deal. I don't want to hear about the fact that there aren't as many first-rounders out there. I don't want to hear about the fact that Nick Saban's not out there. I don't want to hear about the fact that these teams both have 2 losses and neither is in the top 5, which, generally speaking, these teams, somebody, mostly Alabama, sometimes both, is in the top 5. Tomorrow is massive. And I will stand by this. I believe one of these 2 teams is going to make the playoff. And if you do, even if you don't win it, it feels like you've made progress. Kalen DeBoer, year 1. Brian Kelly, year 3. You sell those fan bases in the mental capacity they're in right now a national championship playoff berth, not in the game, but in the playoff. I think it's tolerable. I think some will be very encouraged. Keep in mind, there's a lot of trophies in the trophy cases between these 2 programs. And ultimately, not actually finishing the job feels a little bit empty. But I think progress can be acknowledged. And when you lose to Vanderbilt, ending things on a higher note than that, generally speaking, is a good news. And for LSU, yeah, I wish you wouldn't lose to USC. It looks like they stink. But you get to the playoff, there's something to that. Something to the old Skip Bertman. Like, you got to get there first before you go win it. Tony Vitello might tell you the same thing. Now, Jay Johnson didn't with his LSU team. He had been there previously. But I think this program getting that opportunity would be a very, very positive thing. And I'll be candid with you on this. Like, I have said week after week, I'm going to choose to believe that LSU's got a chance to go to the playoff and play with Penn State and play with Miami and play with Texas or A&M, play with Clemson, play with whoever you want to talk about out of the Big 12, BYU. I think LSU can play with Indiana. I think LSU can play with those teams. I'm not telling you I think they'd beat them every time, but I'm willing to take that shot. And there are flaws on this team, and I wish they ran the ball better, and I wish the defense played better in the second half against USC and in the second half against A&M. And I realize, again, that they don't have 11 first-round picks on this roster right now. But I still think they got a fighting chance. But you've got to get through Alabama tomorrow. And if you don't, there's a lot of questions to be answered, and the air comes completely out of the balloon. Because you can no longer sell 10 wins. You can no longer sell 9 with the bowl game is what I'm talking about there. You can no longer sell high-end bowl game. There is nothing you can sell this program in this city, in this state, around that football program. There's nothing you can sell short of a playoff at this point. Nothing. And that very much holds true at Alabama right now, too. Somebody can't sell that tomorrow. So, yeah, felt like bigger stakes in 11? Sure. Felt like bigger stakes in 19? Sure. Felt like bigger stakes in 15? Yep. But there are still huge stakes on the line in this game on Saturday. And I'm fired up to be talking about it here for a couple of hours. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.